Etta James was born James Etta Hawkins on January 25, 1938, in Los Angeles, California, to Dorothy Hawkins, a 14-year-old mother, with her father absent. Life began harshly. She was shuffled between relatives and foster homes, learning early that survival required resilience and cunning. From a young age, James Etta sought refuge in music. By age 5, she was singing in church, her voice astonishingly mature for a child. Congregants described her tone as ancient, carrying a weight of sorrow and emotion that made even adults pause. In a segregated Los Angeles, young black children had few outlets. Music became her sanctuary, a place where her pain, curiosity, and spirit could merge into something beautiful. Even as a child, she defied norms. Society expected girls to be quiet, obedient, and demure. But James Etta was outspoken, stubborn, and fiercely independent. Music allowed her to carve out a space in a world that otherwise ignored her. The church, the streets, and the local clubs became her education in rhythm, emotion, and survival. Every note she sang was a defiance of the limitations imposed on her by race, gender, and poverty. As a teenager, James Etta joined a local doo-wop group called the Creolettes, quickly standing out for her bold voice and commanding stage presence. She caught the attention of Johnny Otis, the famed bandleader and producer. Otis recognized the raw genius in her, but he also understood the obstacles she would face as a young black girl trying to break into a male-dominated, racially biased industry. He gave her a stage name, Etta James, signaling the start of her professional life. In 1955, she released her first hit, The Wallflower, Roll With Me, Henry, a playful R&B song that was both suggestive and rebellious for its era. It became a hit, but it also revealed the unfair realities of the music business. The era was rife with payola, a corrupt system where radio DJs and executives were bribed to play certain songs. Many black artists, like Etta, were pressured to pay or compromise to gain airplay. In order to survive, Etta had to navigate these treacherous waters while maintaining her independence and artistic integrity. At the same time, social norms demanded that young black women remain modest and compliant. Etta defied this, performing with confidence, sexual allure, and authority. Even at 17, she exuded a presence that made men in the industry uneasy, forcing them to respect her talent while resenting her independence. In the late 1950s, Etta moved to Chicago and signed with Chess Records, home to legends like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and Chuck Berry. Here, she began recording the songs that would cement her place in music history, All I Could Do Was Cry, My Dearest Darling, At Last, and I'd Rather Go Blind. I'd Rather Go Blind, 1967, stands as a pinnacle of her artistry. The song's raw, heart-wrenching emotion captured heartbreak in a way few singers ever could. When she sang, I'd rather go blind than to see you walk away, it was more than a lyric, it was an expression of lived experience, a reflection of love, betrayal, and survival in a harsh world. Chess Records gave Etta creative freedom, but she still faced the challenges of being a black woman in a male-dominated sector. Producers, executives, and fellow artists often underestimated her or tried to mold her into a marketable version that fit white expectations. Payola, exploitation, and discrimination were daily realities. Yet, Etta's voice transcended these limitations. Her performances were electrifying, she could growl one moment and soar to a note of pure beauty the next. Every audience felt her pain, joy, and defiance. Etta also faced societal pressures offstage. The 1960s were a time of racial tension and strict gender norms. Black women were often marginalized, and stepping into the spotlight carried risks of scrutiny, judgment, and exploitation. Etta embraced these challenges, channeling anger, desire, and struggle into every performance, turning adversity into timeless art. Despite her rising fame, Etta James's life was far from easy. She faced challenges that would have broken many, yet she turned each obstacle into fuel for her artistry. Addiction became a constant battle, heroin and alcohol threatened not just her career, but her life. Many of her contemporaries succumbed to the pressures of the industry, but Etta's resilience set her apart. Etta saw many artists that were silenced for speaking up, and it was always over ownership of their music. Being a black woman in a male-dominated music industry added layers of complexity. Producers and executives often tried to control her image, dictate which songs she should record, and undermine her authority. She was expected to conform to a narrow vision of femininity and blackness, while male artists were given more freedom to experiment and dominate stages. Etta refused to be shaped by anyone's expectations. Her assertiveness, sometimes labeled as defiance, became part of her legend. The social norms of the era further compounded her struggles. Growing up in the 1940s and 1950s, she faced segregation, systemic racism, and the expectation that women remain docile and compliant. On top of that, fame demanded perfection. Any personal misstep could be exploited by the media or her competitors. Yet she navigated it all, using her music to speak truths that could not be spoken openly in polite society. Her personal life mirrored the intensity of her music. Romantic betrayals, broken friendships, and family tensions were constant sources of pain. But every heartbreak, every disappointment, and every brush with the law became a story she could pour into her songs. Tracks like I'd Rather Go Blind were not just performances, they were confessions, allowing audiences to feel her vulnerability while witnessing her strength. Touring added another layer of difficulty. Long nights on the road, performing in venues that often excluded black audiences or offered substandard conditions, tested her physically and emotionally. Yet she delivered every performance with a fiery passion that left fans spellbound. Each note, growl, and whisper carried decades of experience, pain, and triumph. Through all this, Etta James became a symbol not just of musical brilliance, but of survival. Her life demonstrated that even in the face of addiction, exploitation, societal pressure, and heartbreak, a woman could assert her voice, claim her story, and transform struggle into timeless art. By the 1980s and 1990s, Etta James experienced a remarkable renaissance. After years of struggle with addiction and the unpredictable music industry, she returned to the spotlight with renewed energy, determination, and artistry. Audiences and critics alike recognized not only her talent but the depth and authenticity that had always defined her work. She won multiple Grammy Awards, including recognition for Best Jazz Vocal Performance and Best Contemporary Blues Album, cementing her status as one of the greatest voices of her generation. In 1993, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a milestone that reflected decades of influence and perseverance. During this time, Etta became a mentor and inspiration for a new generation of artists. Singers like Beyoncé, Adele, and Christina Aguilera cited her as a guiding influence, proof that her impact transcended genres and generations. She showed that a black woman in a male-dominated industry could claim her power, demand respect, and reshape the musical landscape on her terms. Her later albums, including 7-Year Itch and The Right Time, revealed a singer who had lived fully, loved deeply, and suffered greatly. Every track showcased not only her unmatched vocal range but also her ability to communicate emotion with raw honesty. Live performances during this era were electrifying. Audiences could feel every note, every whisper, every growl as though it carried the weight of her entire life. Etta James's influence extended beyond music. She broke social barriers, challenged industry norms, and became a symbol of resilience and independence. She was proof that talent combined with determination could overcome systemic racism, sexism, and the limitations imposed by society. Her legacy was no longer just her music, it was the example she set for anyone daring to claim their voice against the odds. Etta James passed away on January 20, 2012, just 5 days shy of her 74th birthday. But her voice, her spirit, and the mark she left on the world were never going to fade. Even in her final years, she continued to perform, recording new music, and appearing on stages where audiences could feel the history she carried in every note. Fans who witnessed her live said it was as if she poured a lifetime of love, heartbreak, and triumph into every song. Her later performances were quieter in some ways, more intimate, yet they carried decades of experience, wisdom, and emotional depth. When she sang at last, it wasn't just a song about love, it was the voice of a woman who had survived every storm life could throw at her. Every note reflected not only personal joy but decades of struggle, from childhood instability to addiction, from heartbreak to the exploitation she endured in a male-dominated music industry. Etta James was more than a singer, she was a storyteller, a survivor, and a symbol of resilience. The social and racial barriers she had confronted throughout her life had shaped her voice, imbuing it with authenticity that no studio effects could replicate. She had lived through segregation, systemic racism, and a society that often sought to silence women, especially Black women. Yet, she transformed these experiences into art that spoke universally, a voice that could heal, inspire, and move millions. Her influence stretched far beyond her lifetime. Artists across genres, from rock and soul to R&B and pop, cite Etta as a formative inspiration. Her style, her raw honesty, and her ability to channel personal pain into musical beauty set a standard that continues to guide generations of singers. Even today, young performers look to her recordings for lessons on emotional authenticity, vocal power, and commanding presence. Etta's personal reflections in interviews reveal the depth of her awareness. She understood her place in music history, saying, "Most of the songs I sing, they're the stories of my life." Her songs were confessions, proclamations, and sometimes warnings. Tracks like "I'd Rather Go Blind" conveyed heartbreak that anyone could feel, while At Last celebrated the triumph of love and resilience. Each song was a chapter of her life, giving listeners a window into a woman who lived fully, sometimes recklessly, but always passionately. Her legacy also extends beyond music. Etta James became a cultural icon, embodying courage in the face of systemic oppression. She demonstrated that a Black woman could claim her voice, command stages, and influence generations in ways that challenged societal norms. The struggles she endured, the addiction, exploitation, and personal loss, did not diminish her. Instead, they enriched her artistry, giving it a depth that resonates to this day. Even after her passing, Etta James lives on, in the tears of a bride singing At Last at her wedding, in the cover of I'd Rather Go Blind by new generations of singers, and in every soulful note that carries emotion from heart to heart. Her life story is a testament to the power of resilience, authenticity, and the transformative magic of music. She reminds the world that a true artist's voice does more than entertain, it survives, it heals, it inspires, and it changes the world. Etta James taught us that pain can be turned into beauty, struggle into song, and life into a legacy. Her journey, from a turbulent childhood in Los Angeles to the stages of the world, remains one of the most extraordinary in music history. In every note she sang, every lyric she breathed life into, she left an indelible imprint on the soul of the world. And even now, decades after her voice first rose in church halls and small clubs, it continues to echo in hearts everywhere, timeless, powerful, and unforgettable.